Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. I just came back from a 2-week trip to the west coast of Canada, which was great, and now that I have had some time to put together all the expenses, it is time for me to share the total cost of it. Hopefully this is useful if you are planning on traveling to Canada and want to know more or less how much you can expect to spend. And not only I will be sharing the expenses, but of course I will also share some tricks or some things we did to spend less on our trip. First, let me give you very briefly some context which is relevant for the expenses. I traveled to Canada together with my mom and my sister, so we were three, and we traveled from Barcelona, Spain to Vancouver, Canada, and we did this for a total of 14 days from June 22nd to July 6th. We rented the car and spent the 2 weeks between the Sunshine Coast, which is very close to Vancouver, and then also the Vancouver Island, being Vancouver Island where we spent most of our time there. That said, and since in this video I really just want to focus on the expenses, that's what I will be doing. So I won't be going into detail of the places we visited and all of that. If you're curious, if you want to know more, then just drop it in the comments below and I will make sure to get back to you. But this video will be solely focused on the expenses. Let's do it a bit differently, and let me start already by sharing the total that we spent for the 14 days we were there, which was 3,970.36 euros between the three of us, which means that for each person we spent roughly 1,323.45 euros, which is also 94.5 euros per person and per day. This includes every single expense that we had, so accommodation, flights, food, everything you can imagine, that's all included in the numbers I just shared now. In my eyes, this is pretty low cost, and you can very easily spend much more than this because we were quite frugal, and I'm sure that you will understand this now when we go into the breakdown of all the expenses. First in the list are flights. For this we paid 1,556.66 euros for the three of us, and with one checked-in baggage where we basically had the tent and some sleeping bags because we went just camping. And this means that for each person we paid around 519 euros, which is a pretty good deal, especially considering that the dates in which we traveled can almost be considered as high season. We booked this about 4 months in advance and were from Barcelona to Vancouver with one layover, because at least that I know of, there are no direct flights at the moment between Barcelona and Vancouver, and this was the most affordable option we could find. If you are interested, we flew there with Air France and the return was with KLM. Both flights went very well overall. Also, I must highlight that when flying there to Vancouver, it is amazing. So if you get a sunny day, you can get to see from the air Greenland, also the whole north of Canada. It was really nice. The next largest expense was the car that we rented, for which we paid 1,270.97 euros, which is about 91 euros per day. In fact, the rental was roughly 870 euros for the 2 weeks, but unfortunately we had a little accident and we damaged the car. We took the damage waiver option, but only the one that covered from 400 euros above, which meant that no matter what happened with the car, we had to pay the first 400 euros, and then afterwards the car rental company was taking over the cost. So in this case, we rented with Avis, it was Avis then paying the rest. Because of this, we actually ended up paying more than what we initially planned for, but still, considering how much car rental prices have been increasing over the past few months, I think that we still got a pretty fair deal even after paying those 400 euros extra. And in case you're wondering why didn't we take the full damage waiver option already up front, well, the thing was that it was already 400 euros more expensive, so we thought, okay, if we damage the car, it will anyways end up being the same cost, and if we don't damage the car, then we will have saved 400 euros. Unfortunately, that was not the case. We damaged the car, but that was a bit the logic behind it. Also, if you are curious, we got a Hyundai Elantra, which is a car model that actually I have never seen in Europe. Related to the car, we also have the next category of expenses, the fuel. The car uses gasoline, and we spent in total 233.54 euros. The good thing was that the car wasn't very big and the consumption was pretty low at between 5.5 to 6 liters every 100 kilometers. Still though, the price of the gasoline was of between 1.9 to 1.95 euros for every liter, and this is already having done the conversion from Canadian dollars to euros. If we continue with transportation expenses, the next one on the list are the ferries. On this we spent 252.85 euros because, as I told you, we spent some time in the Sunshine Coast, which to get there you need to take a ferry, and in Vancouver Island, which to get there you also need to take a ferry. In total, we took 4 one-way ferries for 3 people plus a car, so I don't think that what we paid was expensive at all. Also, considering that during one of these ferry trips you might just get lucky and be able to spot some whales or dolphins on the way. It wasn't the case for us this time, unfortunately, but actually about 3 years ago when I was last in Canada, I was lucky enough to be able to spot some from the ferry. Next in the list is food, on which we spent 350.88 euros, so about 116 euros per person. For food, we bought mostly everything in supermarkets, and only one time we went out to a restaurant slash takeaway place to eat some salmon and tuna tacos, which by the way they were amazing, delicious. But for supermarkets, our favorite slash the cheapest ones that we could find were the Real Canadian Superstore and Walmart, probably being the Real Canadian Superstore our favorite. Still though, in Canada, food is more expensive than in Spain, especially fruits and vegetables, which are double to triple the price from Spain. I must also add that you could technically have spent also less than what we did, because besides of course going to that restaurant one time, we also decided to try and compare Beyond Meat to Impossible Foods, to plant-based food makers, because actually Impossible Foods is not available in Spain, or at least I haven't been able to find it here, and we just wanted to try one of the competitors because actually I own stock of Beyond Meat, so I'm invested in the company, and I also wanted to compare, you know, the competitors. And besides that, I also love the products of plant-based meat, so I just really wanted to try them. And by the way, if you are interested, Impossible Foods actually does an amazing job, and I would even dare to say that the products they have even resemble more meat than the ones of Beyond Meat. I wouldn't dare to say that they are better in any way, they are just different, and I really like both of them. At this point, you're probably missing accommodation. So how much did we spend on that? Well, actually, all we spent was 142.45 euros for the 3 of us for the whole stay. And how did we manage to spend so little? Well, if I had to put it in 2 words, it would be campgrounds and home exchange. The state and provincial campgrounds in Canada are honestly very cheap, and for the 3 of us, we could sleep in a tent, of course in a campground, for between 20 to 30 Canadian dollars per night, which in my eyes, it's very cheap. And even if you don't go to the publicly managed campgrounds and you go to a private one, they are also not that much more expensive, so you can still travel in a budget. What I must say though is that we did struggle to find free campground spots during weekends as well as bank holidays. We were there, for instance, during the Canada Day, which we had no clue about, and all the campgrounds were fully booked. The solution to that is to book them up front online, but we don't like to be really tied up when traveling because we like to improvise, and if we see a place that is nice, then we just prefer to stay there and not just go somewhere else because we have a campground book. And then the second point was home exchange. As the name already suggests, it means exchanging homes. Actually, I made a full detailed video on it a few months, actually years ago, and if you want to watch it, the link to it will be just here above and also down below in the description. And this is just super nice when you are going abroad. In total, we did this for 6 nights, and it's perfect because then we could sleep in a dry place, take a shower, of course wash some clothes, and so on. Finally, I have put another category of other expenses in which we spend about 163 euros in buying presents, a fishing license because I love fishing, also a SIM card to have internet while we were there, amongst other things. On the SIM card, we bought an eSIM from a provider called Olafly, which the cost of it was of 35.8 euros, and we had about 20 gigabytes for 30 days. Honestly, it worked really well, and from one device we could share the internet to the others. Also, for the price we paid, we got many more gigabytes than if we had bought a physical card there in Canada at an airport or a supermarket, because most of those cards were actually really expensive and they had very little allowance in terms of gigabytes. They were offering maybe just 500 megas, 1 gigabyte, which is not really a lot. And I will probably actually make a more detailed video on Olafly because I was really satisfied with it. Adding all of these expenses, we get to the total that I already shared of 3,970.36 euros for the whole trip for the 3 of us, or 1,323.45 euros per person. And this, as you have seen, is traveling really on a budget with no restaurants and no hotels. So if you do want to make use of restaurants and go to hotels and so on, be ready to spend at least 1,000 euros more per person than what I shared here in this video. Anyways, that's it for today. This was the cost of our 2-week trip to the west coast of Canada. What did you think of it? Cheap? Expensive? If you also travel to Canada, how much did you spend? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed, and as always, see you next time.